Hello, 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 and welcome to the Blue Oval Podcast. I am Ben Weissel, and joining me, as always, Garrett Satlin. How's it going, man?
Ben, I just want to give a quick disclaimer for everyone who watches on YouTube because they see me in a Steelers jersey one week and an Eagles jersey the next, and I think they're like, "Oh, is he the biggest Pennsylvania bandwagon guy you can get?" And a little bit, yeah, but Steelers first, Eagles second. When the Eagles aren't playing the Steelers, I root for them. Sorry, family was all in Pittsburgh. They grew up in Philly. I don't know what to tell you. So I just like to spread the love, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it. My parents are Steelers fans, but my dad grew up outside of Philly, so most of my extended family are Eagles fans, and I don't really know how this happened, but I just became like a full Philly fan. I guess because my
Love
dad
it.
was like Phillies and Sixers, and I was like, it makes sense to just be a full Eagles fan at this point if we're going like all like these other Philadelphia sports teams. So I've kind of ended up being like, I like the Steelers. Steelers are fine, but I would be the opposite of you. I'm cheering for the Eagles over anybody.
Yeah, in terms of how about this? Yeah, in terms of sports fandom, if you have a family from in that city range, that you're qualified. I
Yeah,
think that makes sense. And so,
and I lived near there for like when I was like
oh, okay,
three,
so even
but
better. Well, it's okay.
so
It looks they'll take you in. I don't even know if I really am able to be claimed there, but regardless, our own Super Bowl will be when we hit 100 subscribers on Apple Podcasts. We're at 98. Someone please just do. It can be 5-star reviews. We're trying our best. Let's try there. We did get a couple on Spotify. Thank you to everyone who's doing that. Plus 2 there, and also go subscribe on YouTube as well. But Ben, we have conference championship previews and predictions and chats, and I'm very, very excited about this. I think we're just going to riff today. Where do you want to start?
let's start with the ACC championships, and this is such a weird championship to talk about now because of all the different teams that are now in the ACC. And we briefly touched on it last week, and we can start more on the men's side here because I think that's probably really interesting to talk about one of the newcomers to the conference, which is Stanford. And Stanford, after a fantastic pre-national performance, has shot up our rankings. And if you look purely at our rankings, you would think that they're a pretty clear favorite going into the ACC championships. Now, we talked last week, though. I don't know if they are big favorites, if they are the favorite in this kind of setting. Now, in maybe a bigger meet where having some possibly better low sticks, they can be a little bit more competitive. But I also think we just have an inherent distrust of this team. Whenever you feel like you've figured out this Stanford team, they go and do the opposite. So I don't feel great about putting them. I still as the favorite. I think they are, but I don't love it because I think there's several other teams that could end up taking home the title.
So, which men's teams do you think could realistically walk away on this weekend with the title?
I mean, I think there might be five
All right,
teams.
so let's name them. So, Stanford,
Yep, Notre
Wake
Dame.
Forest,
Yep.
Notre Dame. That's 3. So, Wake Forest, Notre Dame, Stanford, UNC.
hmm
And I think this is where it gets tricky. The fifth, is it? I don't think you'll say Virginia. I don't think you're saying Virginia.
I think you could. I think you could make an argument for six because I think if Virginia, I think Virginia is the sixth team in my mind. I think
So the
Syracuse
fifth
is
team
the
is
sixth.
Syracuse. Okay.
Yeah. But I think you could probably make an argument for Virginia. They do have the talent, and we've been saying that in like our season previews for 2 years in a row,
Yeah.
and they haven't really come through on it. But I mean, you look at it like Gary Martin, Will Anthony, Nathan Mountain. That's a good enough top trio that they can, if they all run really well, they could all be in the top 10. And then if they just get incredible performances from fourth or fifth scorers, like someone like a Justin Wachtel, or I mean, they have guys that have been contributors in the past. If it all comes together, they could at least challenge. Now, I think they need a lot of ifs and buts in that scenario. So that's why I think they're number 6. But this is just a deep conference with all these teams that on their best day, I think could take home the win because no one really stands out in a significant way.
So if I had to put a gun to your head and I said, "Hey, the whole world is ending if you don't predict this correctly," what who are you choosing?
Yeah, so as I said, I think Stanford is the favorite, but as far as like the team that I'm probably the most confident is going to be a top 2, top 3 finisher, and with this many teams like duking it out for the title, I think they're the team that I will probably predict to win is Notre Dame. I just think they have a
Mm,
level of consistency, and in this smaller field, now it's not I keep saying smaller field. There's a lot of teams now,
there's a
and
lot of
it's
teams.
deep.
Yeah.
It's not as if finishing 20th at ACCs is not a is not a good performance
It's a great
because
performance. Yeah.
you look. I mean, we just said 6 teams that if they're top 5, that's 30 spots right there, and that's before you add in all the other teams that have quality individuals. So I think in this kind of field that isn't quite as big and quite as deep as like a pre-nationals or a nationals, I think Notre Dame's lack of low stick, or at least true low stick, I think is going to not be as much of an impediment for them. And they're
Hmm.
just so deep with quality guys that they have 7 guys that any of them could be I think a top 4, top 5 finisher for them if they run well. So because of that, I like the consistency. I don't love the top end for this team. I don't think they're a team that's like going to just go and score 25 points or something. Um, but I just trust them the most out of this group.
9 of our top 50 current runners in our rankings currently are from the ACC by a very quick count that I just did.
That's crazy.
I want to make a small point. I had one coach text me this. I don't know if it's true. I have not verified. I have not validated. It's just a rumor. But there was a rumor that Parker Wolfe has potentially an injury, which is why he didn't race. Now, again,
Yeah.
could he have just been resting and sidelined? Yes, that was initially my impression until someone said, "Hey, look into this." It's just a rumor. Don't know if it's true. So if he comes back, awesome, great. I think UNC has a very good shot at winning at this because I personally believe that the firepower does matter quite a bit. I think it's going to be very important, especially if they can have the 1, 2, 3 there with Strand and Sands alongside Wolfe. But something to keep in mind there. Just one thing that came across my line. I'm not reporting that. Something to consider.
Yeah. I mean, it for North Carolina to have any chance, they need Wolf. So it sounds like you're a little bit higher on North Carolina than I am. I mean, again, I think they have a shot. Sands needs to run exceptionally well for them to even have like a chance. I think at finishing top 2, or winning. But I don't love their back end, and like you said, it's while we might disagree on the level of needing a low stick, this field you can get pushed back pretty far
Yeah.
with how many good teams there are.
You can, and that's a very fair point. My actual pick, I think, is I do like Stanford a lot, but I think I'm gonna take Wake Forest. I
Yep.
like Wake
Yeah, and
Forest a
I know
lot.
you mentioned that last week, and I don't think that's a wrong answer. Now we've both been really high on Wake Forest, and I mean Rocky Hansen, especially if there's no Parker Wolf, is going to challenge for the win. And when you got someone like him, Luke Tewalt has I think run pretty well at ACCs historically, if I'm thinking about that correctly,
He
and
has
then
had good performances. Yeah.
yeah. And then you throw in all the other young guys. I mean, Hunter Jones, Joseph O'Brien, Charlie Sprott, Aiden Ross. Like they're not like the household sexy names, but they get the job done.
Yep.
And I totally understand why they're your
Sleeper teams, like teams that you're like, oh, you know what, this team could surprise.
Oh man, let me think about this. Been so focused in on our top 6
By the way,
teams
let's
here.
actually real quick before that, before and I feel like 6 teams is so deep, so maybe we don't even
Yeah.
need that question. But individual, let's say Wolf doesn't run.
Hmm.
Don't know if he will, but let's say he doesn't. Who are you taking?
I think I would take Hansen over Strand.
Okay, I just want to double check. I think I'm
Well,
in the same boat.
are you same boat? Okay.
I think so, but I think it's going to be much closer than people think. If
Yeah.
that
Oh,
happens.
yeah. Absolutely. I think so. A sleeper team for me, I think, is Florida State. they've been competent, and I think they've had a checkered history with ACC championships, even when they've been good. So I think that they could end up underperforming, but I think they've shown some signs of life. Um, it's interesting. There's such a drop off. Like you go through those top 6 teams,
Big
and
drop
after
off.
that, it is tough. Like there is not a whole lot there.
Yeah, that's why I think the NC State portion of this is going to be like an important meet for them. It's like if they can get to top
Yeah,
6, they'll get a little momentum. But it goes like top 6, massive drop off. NC State, massive drop off.
everybody
And
else. Yeah,
everybody else.
exactly.
So let's go to the women's side though. Women, you also have Stanford that'll
Mhm.
potentially be in contention. Virginia will be up there, UNC, but it'll likely be a battle between Notre Dame and NC State. I'm not missing anyone else, right?
I don't
No.
think so, no. And I don't I to be honest, I don't really think it's gonna be much of a battle.
You think Notre Dame's going to just soundly pull away?
I do. I do.
I don't think they're going to soundly pull away, but I think they will win by under 9.5.
I would go over. Or yeah, over. Over 9.5 points.
Over 9.5. Okay.
I think if Leah Stevens runs, then yeah, this is a single digit
I'm
loss.
assuming. I'm assuming she. Yeah, I'm assuming she doesn't run.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's the only like wild card that could change how I see this. And we're not expecting her to run. I just don't. I mean, you look at it, Notre Dame has better depth, and then you look at their top two compared to NC State's top two, and I think I'd probably take Notre Dame's top two. So
No, no,
you don't, okay,
no.
really?
I think they were just flat out better. They're flat out better at pre nationals.
Yeah, no, they were.
Both of
I
them.
mean, yeah, I mean, Grace Hartman was certainly better, and I mean, Hannah Gapes was good. I mean, yeah, she beat Sienna Chisholm. I don't. I agree with Hartman.
You
I don't.
trust the top two
I
of Notre
trust
Dame more.
Covert and Chisholm. Like I just think that maybe NC State beats them by a couple of
Yeah,
points, but
exactly. It's not a lot.
I don't think
Yeah.
I trust Chisholm and Covert to put in like very strong top 6, top 8 performances.
If NC State wins, how does it happen? Like, what's the defining characteristic of their
Oof.
lineup that allows them to win?
Hmm. I think what has to happen is Notre Dame doesn't have anybody in the top 10. And I think Hartman and Gapes both finish in the top 10. They get to a 10-15 point lead through 2, and then they just hang on through that back 3. I think that's really the only way I see this happening, because I don't see a world where that back 3 is better, that 3-4-5 spot is better for NC State than Notre Dame.
Third place. Who are you taking? You've got, and let me throw this out
Yeah.
there as possible contenders for the audience: Virginia, Syracuse, Stanford, UNC, Florida State. Dare I say Clemson? Dare I say it? Who do you like? Or in Boston
I
College? Throw Boston College
I
in there.
still like Stanford the most out of this group. Again, I don't that they have been all over the place a little bit, but I don't feel like there's another team like North Carolina. I think there's just a baseline level of talent that has provided some consistency, but there hasn't been. It's not like they've been fantastic throughout the entire year. They've been solid, and I think that Stanford has a level that they can, if they hit, isn't really matched by anybody else in that group.
What's your top? The rest of your top 5. Who are you taking 4 or 5?
I think I will go North Carolina. Oh, this one's tough, and probably Virginia.
Not that you're gonna say Florida State.
Yeah, I do like Florida State. I think that's just, yeah, it could go a lot of
It's a
different directions.
task too big.
It's
Yeah.
such a deep, like, again, this, I keep saying it. This conference, I mean, it was deep before you added like the Stanfords and the other teams, but now, I mean, you add Stanford in, and I mean, it's just 5-6 teams that are really quite competitive.
Would you bet money if I put up a prop of like Sylvia Jalego, Judy Kosky, and Gladys Chepngetich.
Yeah.
If all three of those women for Clemson finished in the top 10, and I put that at plus 140, do you take that bet?
Yeah, I would probably want a little bit better odds.
You
Like
want a little bit better. So what? You want 170?
no, I'm thinking like plus two. If I get plus
You want plus
200,
200?
I'm just thinking and this is the way I think about like when you're throwing three like variables in there. Like it could go
Yeah.
just one of them has to run poorly and you lose that bet. Like it's not to say that they can't. It's just that's where I would be a little bit more gun shy and need a little bit better odds.
Also, by the way, if you're an athlete, if you're a coach in the NCAA, you can't bet. Don't bet. Okay. Illegal. Don't do that.
That's why we're here. We're not in the NCAA.
That's why, yeah, we
can't really bet on this because there's no like platform that gives us the option to make these bets, but we would like to.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times people have come to me and just been like, "What? You guys should just make a sports book." I go, "What? So none of our audience can bet on it?" Like, I mean, and bless, like, does anyone realize how much capital that requires? To,
Yeah,
like,
I was going to say
sports
capital,
book?
and then just like the creating some kind of model, like because we can't like you can't make those odds just like back of the napkin. Like we would lose so much money if we were doing that.
I don't know. I think we're pretty good. I think we do better than the competition. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. That it's just man, because you got it. Like there's so many like, especially if like, hey, this everybody starts betting this side, like we could get in trouble quick.
shit. No, turn, erase. All right, I'm moving us off of the ACC. We're going to the Big Ten, which now features Oregon and Washington, and during track season, UCLA and USC. Washington is the women's. I guess you want to start men or women?
No, we can stick
go
on
straight
the
to the women. Washington, favorite.
Yeah.
Do you have anything further comments on that?
No, I think quite clearly. I think interesting to just keep an eye on like who they run, and I think this will be interesting to see. Hey, can someone have maybe a week off, or can someone step up in a way that we haven't seen? Can Sophia Sullivan put together maybe a good race? I think that would be a really great sign. Not really. I don't really care how the Washington team does as a whole. I'm more looking at like specific individuals. If we can get a good race from someone unexpected or something like that, I think that's really what they should be striving for. I think more than
anything. If Solana Yildiz runs for Oregon, how close do they get to Washington? Within how many points? If they run Solana Yildiz plus minus 9.5 over under.
Ooh. You're liking this plus 9.5 line.
I like the. I think it's a good number in this.
Yeah, that is a good one. I would say I'll go over again. I just don't. I like this Washington field team. Yeah, Oregon has the pieces. I just am kind of in a believe it when I see it kind of mode with this team in terms of their top end potential. They're still like a top 15, top 20 team in the country, but top 10 or challenging like a true podium favorite or contender. I don't even think with Yildiz they're there yet.
Who will you take? Okay, here's a handful of the Big Ten teams that could be in contention, right? So Washington, and then we have Wisconsin, Oregon. We have who else do we have? Minnesota, Penn State. Who? I think that's 6 teams. So who is? Unless I miscounted, who's your top 5?
I will go Washington, Wisconsin.
You're taking Wisconsin over Oregon.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
So again, this is similar to arguments I think I made in the ACCs. I trust that Wisconsin is not going to like again. They don't have the top end potential, maybe, but I think they are just going to pack up and run a really smart race. Oregon can beat them. They just need like their firepower to come through in a big way. They need Yildiz. They need Elmore running really well. Like they need like a lot of things to go well. Whereas I think Wisconsin can just run a race and they're going to run a good race and they're going to finish second.
What's Wisconsin's floor in this field? 4th?
I would say 3rd, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I don't. I think they have a really high floor. I just the way they've been able to pack up and run. I hear you on like sure maybe with Minnesota puts together a great day. Penn State puts together a great day and they fall back and they finish fourth. But I could they finish fourth? But I if we're talking about floor being like maybe a 70 like within a 75 percentile outcome, I think I would go third.
And by the way, I did miscount. It was 5 teams I said, not
Yeah.
6.
So yeah, I think I will actually go. What
So you have Wisconsin second, Oregon
Oregon
third.
third,
Who do you have fourth? Do you have Minnesota? Do you have Penn State?
Penn State, I
Yeah.
think.
Yep. Yep. Yeah,
Man, that's
I hate
brutal.
that. Yeah.
Those two very different teams too, and
But
that's
2
what
pretty
makes.
equal teams too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I think in the aggregate, they're very evenly matched. But it's like, does Florence Caron just like give Penn State enough of an edge from the get go that they can take home that fourth place finish?
Individually, let's chat there. By the way, my order is Washington, Oregon, assuming they run Ayeldes, Wisconsin, Penn State, Minnesota. I'm so sorry, Minnesota. It feels so insulting. Um, in terms of the individual title here on the women's side, you've got Florence Caron, of course, of
Yep.
Penn State. And as I kind of look through the rest of it, I guess you could say like a handful of Washington women, such as like
Hmm.
Chloe Forrester, maybe Amina Matug has a great day again. I'm not really banking on that to happen.
Yep.
Maddie Elmore or Ayeldes kind of getting thrown in there as well. Trying to figure out Ali Weimer of Minnesota. She's been great this season. But as I kind of go through this list, I'm not like necessarily like, oh my goodness, about like all of these. Like Maeve Styles could be interesting, but I think
Yeah,
that's it.
it's not a super top heavy field in terms of like low sticks. I think it should be Caron's like race to win. I think Elmore would probably be my number two behind her. I don't know if you see it similarly.
I think it might be a little bit closer. I don't know who I'm going to pick yet, or I don't even know if I'm going to do the predictions for this meet yet. Um, I don't. I'm not. I don't even know if I think I'm ready to. I think it's a coin toss right now. And if you
No,
had to
I
tell
didn't mean to
me,
say that it was like a big gap. I think
no,
that Caron probably comes in as the favorite, and I think rightfully so.
I maybe, but I think I would almost default to Elmore because I think I know what she has and I trust her more.
Experience. Like this would be the biggest win of Karan's career. Like and
Yeah,
this I mean, it's not a little thing to win an individual ACC title. And
Big Ten.
especially or Big 10, sorry, yeah, thank you. To win the Big 10 title and like she's going to have a target on her back. And I think that's not something she's probably experienced very much at the collegiate level. So I think that'll be interesting to see how she reacts to that.
In terms of the men's side, let's go over there. You've got top teams. What? Oh, let me skip that. There we go. Top teams include Wisconsin, Washington. I don't know how you feel about Oregon. Same thing with Michigan State. Michigan, we have no idea. I think we're
Yeah.
still trying to figure that out. I think Indiana's having a decent-ish season, all things considered. But who do you like?
Not a lot of these teams, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think Wisconsin probably. I think they're coming off a good pre-nationals performance. I mean, I don't love a lot of these other teams, and so I think it's more of a by default. Like I think they have a lot of. I think Wisconsin has depth. The young guys we've talked about have stepped up really, really well. Bob Liking looked like he's rounding into the form that we kind of expected him to be in this year. I just don't see another team with the type of upside that really would be able to challenge them.
So I actually disagree. I do think Washington has the upside. And I know what you're thinking. Well, they ran so poorly at pre-nationals. Well, they didn't
Well,
run their top
yeah,
four. They didn't run their top
yeah,
four.
yeah. You can throw that out. That doesn't really mean much.
Right. So, like, do I think Bob Liking's better than any guy that they have? Yeah. But,
Mhm.
like, how much better is Liam Newhart than the combination of Tyrone Gores, Leo Dashbach, um, Eric, uh,
Evan Jenkins,
Evan
Nathan
Jenkins?
Green.
Thank you. I'll say Eric Jenkins. And then Nathan Green. Like, I don't know how much better Liam Newhart is or Rowan Ellenberg is compared to those guys.
Yeah, I hear you. I think it's more of like I think it doesn't have to be Liam Newhart. It can be like 3 or 4 or 5 other
Yeah, it can be
guys. I
Spencer. It
think
can
for
be
Wisconsin.
yeah.
I think that's ultimately what gives them the edge. And they're like I did mention Wisconsin has 2 young guys that have stepped up in Newhart and Matan Avery, but I mean Michael Wilson, Rowan Elberg, this is Adam Spencer. They've done this so many times. Like I trust them to put in good performances here. Where I'm not quite as sure on like maybe an Evan Jenkins or a Leo Dashbach in this kind of scenario.
6.5 Wisconsin. That's the margin you get.
I was hoping you were gonna go 9.5 because I was gonna be like, yes, I'll definitely go under that.
But you go under, as in like.
Yeah, I would say if you set the line at 9.5, I would have gone
okay,
under.
yeah. You're saying that they wouldn't win by more than 9.
Yeah, so I don't know. 6.5 is tight.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point.
That's a good line. It's a good line.
Yeah.
At risk of just like continuing and sounding like a broken record, I think I'm gonna go over 6.5. I think they're probably gonna be between 7 and 9 points.
Interesting. I think I'd take the under.
Yeah.
I think Washington covers the difference on that. I think they could come within 6 points.
Should we start doing that as part of our predictions of giving like
what we project the lines to be?
Spreads basically.
Spreads, yeah. I don't hate that.
It's not a bad way of like handicapping a field so that you can. I mean, it's a good way of just quickly showing the audience how like strongly we feel about things. I think.
Yeah, I think we'd also be like, it's like, hey, here's 1,000 lawsuits for you creating 1 million degenerate gamblers because we have totally 1 million listeners. But yeah, okay, I'm moving us off of that.
Third place. Who do you think finishes third?
Preferably no one. I think Michigan. I don't think Michigan's nearly as bad as their pre-nationals performance says. I think they're better. I trust them in a Big Ten field. I trust Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah.
And I don't trust Oregon at all.
Yeah, man, that is quite the indictment on Oregon. Yeah.
Well, what am I supposed to trust them?
No, I don't disagree. Like I mean, it's just tough. Like when this is not a good Big Ten like field compared like as it could be in years going forward, and it's like we don't love. I agree. I don't see them as a top 3 finisher. I think Michigan State's going to be like right in the mix there too as well.
I think Oregon beats Michigan State.
Yeah, I would predict it, but I think that's kind of a tier in my mind. I think those 3 teams. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see because I was very excited on the trajectory that Oregon was on, and this fall has hurt my feelings in that regard. Individually.
Bob Legging.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to Big 12s, and we can stick on the men's side. I'm curious how strongly do you think these teams and these teams I'm talking about, BYU and Oklahoma State, are going to be like gunning for this title? Like do we think they're showing all their cards and going like, hey, we want to like prove that we are clearly the number 1 team in the country. We're going to beat our top competition in the country in our conference meet, or is there going to be a little caginess knowing that they're going to be racing each other in about a month?
Knowing that like coaches' contracts have incentives to like win titles in them, and therefore you get bonuses.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle to believe like that's the case. I think Oklahoma State's going to run close to all of their guys, maybe not all, but I think like I could see them resting LeBron, Kemboy, and or Fouad Masaudi, but I think everyone else would run. I think they'd go all out. This is anything that you hold back from. I think same thing with BYU. Like conference titles matter. Matter. There's pride and still a lot into that. Iowa State is also like close enough to the point where I don't think you can take them lightly and just not to to BYU and Oklahoma State, of course. No, I think they go all out, and I mean this is going to be like, this is a crazy good conference meet. I mean, I can't remember a conference meet here that was like this highly contested. The level of raw talent in this field is unreal. I mean, yeah, three podium teams.
Yeah.
That's
That's what I was going
dangerous.
to mention. When's the last time we've seen that? 3 podium favorites in the same conference. It's crazy.
That is really, really crazy. So I assume we're taking Oklahoma State, right?
Yeah, I think you got to. But I think to kind of what you were saying, and it was a little bit of a leading question about like, hey, do we think they're going to go out? I think this race is, I think, a little bit bigger for BYU than maybe it is for Oklahoma State. Getting their first Big 12 title. I think they're going to want to like give themselves the confidence that, hey, we can beat Oklahoma State. Oklahoma Sate knows they can win a national title. They just did it like in like convincing fashion. If they lose, I don't think they're going to be like, oh man, like we're going to go into the national meet like and not be able to win. I think they're looking at, and I think Dave Smith is doing this perfectly. He's just seeing this as what can we do to make sure that we are at our best at the national championship. Everything is in service to that. And not to say that BYU's not targeting that either, but I think this, for all the reasons I just mentioned, I think this is a race that BYU cares a lot more about.
Yeah, relatively speaking. I guess. I still don't think it matters. I still think Oklahoma State's
It
better.
probably won't, but
Yeah.
I
Now,
just,
granted,
I think that's what it
if
did.
one guy, if they like rest a guy or two and then one Oklahoma State runner has a bad day,
Yeah.
if BYU's top 5 shows up, they'll probably win in that scenario. Is it likely? No. Oklahoma State at minus 180. Do you take that? To win.
Yeah, I would. I think they're more than a minus 180 favorite.
You think they're more than a minus 180 favorite,
Yeah,
even over
yeah.
BYU and Iowa State?
Yeah, I think if you can promise me that they're fielding a full lineup, I think they are. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if I would take that. I don't know if I would because I don't know that if they're running a full lineup.
Well, yeah, I guess that's.
And when I say running a full lineup, like I know they're going to run a competitive lineup that can compete and try to win,
right.
But is it going to be all single
guys.
7 guys that like I know? Like I could see a scenario where they run everyone except Shoppy. I could see a scenario where they run everyone but Kip Kembo and everyone but Masaudi, right? Yeah. Like there's like 4 guys who I could realistically see them sidelining, but I still think that like 5 or 6 of their top 7 will still run.
What does Iowa State have to do to beat either of these teams, but more likely BYU?
A handful of things need to happen, but it's all possible. So Robin Kiwabera just has to keep doing what he's doing. Awesome. Saeed McKill needs to have the best race or close to the best race of his career. Sanam Basanda needs to replicate the performance that we saw from last year's national meet.
Yep.
Joash Ruto needs to actually come into this lineup and be as good as we think he can be. And if you do that, and if like a 5th guy like Silas Winders or Devin Kipiego are just good enough to hang on to the back of this, pack here, or it stay in that contention of like a top 20 finish, if that happens, there's a scenario. It's still pretty thin. A lot would need to go their way, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm going to make a little bit of a bold proclamation. I haven't done the research to know if this is accurate, but it feels like this is going to be the hardest top 10 finish to get in conference history, like in all major conferences.
Individual.
Yeah, individually. Like you go through the names, it is
crazy.
So like you say, like when I hear you say, all right, Robin Kwemo-Ibera, you keep doing your thing. I was like, what does that mean? Does that mean he finishes like 3rd? Does that mean he finishes like 7th? Like, yeah, I was like, he could be doing his thing and finish 7th. It's that good of a feel. Like that's the scary part is like they need him to be a top 3, top 5 finisher, which is crazy.
What would need to happen is I think like they go 4, 7, 8, 10, and then Devin Kipiego's like 16, 17, and the Texas Tech guys and maybe like 1 or 2 Colorado guys and one other person who we're not familiar with kind of, has a great day, and then they push the BYU and Oklahoma State guys back.
That BYU pack back a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's going that front pack's going to be insane. Like there's going to be like 15 guys just gunning for it for a long portion of the race before if it's Brian Masau or somebody else just makes a run for it and tries to break away. There's going to be a lot of surges going on in that back.
Colorado, how many points do they come within that top 3?
Ooh, I don't even think it's going to be very close.
Like 20 and a half?
Yeah, that 20 was the number I was thinking of. I think 25. I think
I think it's lesser because it's like after those 3, who else is really, like, maybe Texas Tech, I guess, but Texas
that's
Tech
the thing.
is
Like
just so
Texas Tech
top
could start
heavy.
pushing the scores back a little
The
bit.
Texas Tech though is just so top heavy with Chariot and with Kipchoge, where I'm just like, okay, so like we can say, okay, yeah, Colorado's going to be 20, 25 points back, but it's not like they're really battling. Again, maybe you want to say Texas Tech, but it's really not like they're battling with anyone with a complete lineup for that 4th place. I think I'd take the under on that because I just don't know mathematically if the field is going to be top heavy enough to allow them to push them back.
Well, I think what it kind of depends on is where's their first score. Like, is Dean Casey top 15? Is he top 20? Like it's going to be hard to stay within touching distance if he's not somewhere in that top 15, I feel like, because otherwise it's just, they're going to be at such a point deficit. I mean, they're going to be 2 or 3 scores possibly from each of those teams in front of him.
Who wins the individual title?
I think it has to be Brian Masau. I think based off of what he's done so far, but this could be a Solomon Kipchoge like statement race here, where he really puts himself firmly in that. I think in our mind there's like 4 real true title contenders, right? For the NCAA title.
I think definitely 3. I'm iffy on the 4th.
Okay, and I think Kipchoge, this could be the situation where he puts himself in that group.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think it could be for sure him. In terms of like guys who could win this title.
Yes.
How many do we think there are?
3, 4. I think 3.
I'll go 4. I think it's the 2 Texas Tech guys. I think it's Brian Masau. You could convince me that Dennis Kipnigetich is the other guy.
Well, so I had him. I didn't have Chariot in there.
You don't think Ernest Chariot can't win? You don't think he can win this title?
I just he's been so far back of Kipchoge that I don't like. I don't think that that's going to be, at least in his last race. I don't think that he's going, like, if a Texas Tech guy's gonna win it, it's going to be Kipchoge.
Interesting. I think Kipchoge would be favored over Chariot, but all right, I'm moving off of that. Let's go to the women's side, which is arguably just as entertaining and just as cool.
Yeah.
The top teams to watch here are, of course, BYU. Mm-hmm. They are top team in the country, or at least as of right now. They'll probably be favored to win this race.
Yes.
But they will be given a little bit of a challenge from Utah, from West Virginia.
Can't believe we're talking about West Virginia in this conversation.
It's pretty wild. And then I'm trying to figure out, who else am I missing here? Is there someone else? Oklahoma State, I guess, is going to be in the mix for a top 4, but outside of that, I'd say that's the 4. Who's BYU's biggest threat and why?
I think it's West Virginia.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they've proven the model at pre-nationals. You put together like McCabe and Nokut, and if they're neck and neck with, or maybe even better than BYU's top 2, which I think is a little bit of a stretch, but like that's the formula, right? Where they are better through 2, and they just are, and the rest of the BYU's pack isn't quite as high up as we expect, and in this smaller field, their top, their 3 through 5 aren't that far behind, and they end up by a little bit of luck taking home the title. I think it requires like a lot of different things going right, but like for Utah, I think I would trust them so much more to finish second than West Virginia, but I don't necessarily see the top end upside where they're seriously challenging BYU.
I think the overall scoring nature of Utah's lineup, I trust more.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I trust Utah more as a team than I do West Virginia because we've really only seen West Virginia have one truly
One
standout
race. Yeah.
race. So it's a little tricky. Minus 250 to BYU. Do you take that?
Yeah.
I think so too. Um,
I think they're
who
quite.
you're taking? Who are you taking second? Because the biggest threat to BYU is not necessarily who's going to be closest to
Yeah,
BYU.
I think Utah's too.
Okay,
In my mind, I was trying to make that distinction of like, yeah, I trust Utah to finish second a lot more,
okay,
but
okay.
if West Virginia has the upside, the volatility that something could happen.
Oklahoma State. How close did they get within that top three?
I think they could get a little bit closer
Yeah,
than maybe we expect
I agree.
because if they again they don't have that front runner, but if they just kind of pack up with or right in front of or right around West Virginia's like three, then I think hey, this is a team that isn't that miles behind despite giving up a lot of points 1 through
And
2.
Iowa State is our fifth team. I assume over Colorado, right? Because Colorado was not good.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't love that.
I mean,
Don't
well,
love what
who
I've
else are
seen
you
out of Iowa
taking?
State. No, I agree. I just don't love trusting Iowa State based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah, well, I don't really trust
But
anyone. I don't
the
trust
rest of the
anyone
options are not
else.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I would put that together in a parlay. But okay, I'm moving us off of Big 12. SEC. This is gonna be. I don't want to say it's gonna be an interesting race because I do think that Alabama's
Alabama.
probably the better team, but like maybe so maybe it is going to be an interesting race, right? Because Alabama is the favorite coming in, but you can see a scenario where Florida makes things really tricky for
Hmm.
them.
Yeah.
Um, I'd be a little careful if I was Alabama, and then I'm trying to look here. I don't think Arkansas is going to be in the mix
No.
here. I don't.
Although this could be like the Arkansas like program like just like we saw this, what was it on the men's side, was it Arkansas, who was it, or was it what team just kind of came out of like left field and made it like a 3-4 team, like I think we was like it was Alabama,
It was Alabama,
Tennessee,
Tennessee,
Arkansas.
Arkansas, maybe like Ole Miss, probably.
Yeah, I think it was Ole Miss who just like came out of left field and just like made it competitive. I could see that kind of happening where maybe all this is a contingent on Alabama not having a good race. If they run well, no one's touching them in my mind. But to your point, Florida has a very similar structure of like how they could run, and if they match up well and their back scores are better than Alabama's, then they can make this a lot more interesting than we think. And then yeah, Arkansas, I don't trust them at all. But hey, this is an experienced program. They've done well at SECs year in and year out.
Well,
Maybe
I
they.
don't even think Arkansas is favored for third. Like I think you could actually argue that LSU is favored,
Yeah,
or that
you're right. You're right.
Tennessee is favored, right? Or maybe Ole Miss is favored, or Texas is favored, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so who's your top five? Let's play this game.
Okay, so Alabama, Florida. I like LSU. I think it's a little scary to give a lot of credence to these small meets because it's not exactly what you're going to see in a more competitive conference race. But I like what I've seen out of them. I'm going to go LSU. I'll go Arkansas 4 just because again, I not based off of really what we've seen so far this year. And then I'll go Tennessee 5, I think.
I'll do the same as you, but I'll flip Tennessee to 4, Arkansas to 5.
Okay.
The individual battle will be between Hilda Olamwamwe
Yeah.
and Doris Lemegal. As I said in the preseason, like teammates turned rivals kind of thing.
Yeah.
So who are you taking? Or
Lemon
or
Goal.
either of them. Lemegal. Okay, there's one double
Yeah.
check.
I don't think you can pick against her at this point.
Behind those two, who else? You've got Brenda Chipchurcher from Auburn. You've got Peyton Noe of Arkansas. I don't think we're going to see
Mm-hmm.
Thorvalds in this season. You've got Leah Geruto of Oklahoma. You've got
Did you mention Brenda Tuohy?
I did not, of Alabama, another good one. Feline Charuto of Alabama as well. Excuse me. Trying to think of who else. I think that's
I think I'm gonna
probably.
go with Peyton Noe, but I think Brenda Tuohy would be right there.
I think in this race it's going to be so aerobic centric and it's going to be hard from the gun.
Yeah,
I think I'd take two-way, and
yeah.
then after that I'd probably take Noe, and then oh man, Leo Geruto. Saying that Leo Geruto would finish fifth in this field is like,
Yeah.
ooh.
I don't love that.
Like
Yeah,
the
you're right.
fact that one of Noe, Jepchirchir, Geruto, and who we say that was going to take third?
Two-way.
Two-way. The idea that one of those four women will not be
Outside
a
the top
top five
10.
finisher in
Yeah.
the SEC XC championships is scary, like really
Yeah,
scary.
I think it depends on a lot on how these women run, because like I think Lemon Goal is going to try to break people, and if some of these women try to hang on for too long, they're going to get caught. More than likely, they could get broken and get caught by
Yep.
someone who's a little bit more conservative. So I think it really depends on how long a lot of these women try to stick with Lemon Goal and Hilda Longley.
Let's move to the men's side here. In terms of the team battle, Arkansas seems pretty
Yeah.
clear cut.
Although I think Alabama in
does
this
have
kind
it.
of
Yeah, I was gonna say I was looking through. I was like, wait, no. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, Alabama in this kind of field, I mean, not having that fifth scorer that's as potent as Arkansas's potential fifth scorer isn't nearly as impactful. And I mean, we haven't seen anything out of Alabama that tells us that they can't go toe to toe through a couple runners with Arkansas. I think Arkansas's rightly favored, but I think this is going to be a close race.
Minus 120 Arkansas.
Yeah, I think I would go. I would do the plus money on Alabama. I think that would be more value. There'd be more value there.
So what's the plus money on Alabama? Plus 130.
Yeah, I think something like that.
Yeah.
Plus 150. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I think like through four, and then everyone's like, well, we haven't seen Alabama's full lineup. Okay, but there's no reason to think that we have.
They can't all run well on the same day. Yeah.
Yeah. Now Hillary Chariot we haven't seen yet, but sometimes this happens. So like if he's out, then yeah, this is a different story.
Yeah.
So I still think Arkansas is just slightly better on the back end than Alabama.
Absolutely.
And
yeah,
by slightly, I mean like they are significantly better. So like there's that portion, and like, but again, I also don't trust the Akron guys. I don't trust Timothy Chesenden and Brian Masai. Like Masai has not been.
Masai's not been good. No,
he just hasn't been the guy that I think we've hoped he could be. And Chesenden was outside the top 50 at pre-nationals, which is still a great result. So yeah, just something to consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a really interesting race, because you're just going to see a ton of red uniforms just kind of clumped up together, or red or white uniforms just clumped up together, and it's going to be, hey, does it go Arkansas, Alabama, Alabama, or does it like go in that reverse order? And really, there's a lot of variations in that.
Who are you taking? Oh, by the way, we forgot about mentioning, because Cincinnati's now in the Big 12. Patrick Kiprop of Cincinnati, the freshman.
Oh yeah, you're right.
He's now in the Big 12. Who are you taking for the individual title? It could be, so just for the audience, it could be Karami Yago, it could be Karami Yago of Arkansas, Patrick Kiprop of Arkansas, Yasin Abdallah of Arkansas. I don't know if I put Ben Shure in that conversation.
No,
I think it's just outside that. But it could be Dennis Cabrupto of Alabama, Victor Kiprop of Alabama, Dismas Lukira of Alabama. Don't think I'm going to put Hillary Chariot in that conversation. Going to put him just outside. And I'm looking through here just to make sure that I don't forget anyone else. But I think I got all those contenders. Everybody. Who are you taking?
I think it actually could come down to the veterans, the Kiprop guys on Alabama and Arkansas. I'm ultimately going to go with Patrick Kiprop, coming off a really good pre-nets performance. I think he looks in control, and he's running well at SECs hasn't been ever an issue. It's more of the national meets that things get a little bit Harry, but I think he's my favorite.
I think I'm with you. But man, that's a tight
It's gonna be a big group. I mean, it's gonna be a loaded group of guys going
do the
in.
odds makers make either of those guys favorites?
I don't think you can make anybody negative, minus money. I think
Yeah.
everybody's
Against the
going.
field, I'd take the field over.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, we're off the SEC. We're now moving to the Big East, which is going to be a really fun conference meet, maybe as fun as it's ever been, especially on the women's side. Let's start with the actually let's go to the women. Let's go to the women's side here because I think it's
Okay.
going to be fun. Georgetown
Yeah.
versus Providence, and then maybe Villanova, depending on how you feel about Villanova. But Georgetown versus Providence, the clash of the Titans. Georgetown just recently defeated Providence.
Mm-hmm.
Providence's top three of Kimberly May, Alex Millard, and Shannon Flockhart has looked outstanding. Kenzie Doyle's still not in the lineup yet. Jane Buckley's still not in the lineup yet. Laura Mooney doing a fine enough job in that fourth spot, and they have a decent enough depth.
Mm-hmm.
Georgetown, Scrimger, Jinx, Riggins looking excellent. Their back end scoring looks stronger than last year by a considerable margin.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Georgetown, but they were just close enough at their latest meet where I'm thoughts?
We're splitting hairs, yeah. Lucy Jenks has been
Just great.
One of the more valuable runners in the country. She's been, I think, everything Georgetown could have asked for and a lot more, quite frankly. I mean, the fact that she's been as close to Scrimger in a lot of these races and beating Riggins is not really something I expected. I thought she would be their third runner in a lot of races. I thought Riggins would be that number 2. Ultimately, I do think this race kind of hinges on her. I think if she's this good, if she's going to be Georgetown's number 2 runner and Scrimger and Riggins are running well, like they have been, then I think Georgetown just has a higher upside, higher ceiling than what Providence does. If she's kind of what we maybe expected at the beginning of the season, of more hey, she in this last race she was finished 4th and Riggins was 8th. If Jenks is more like a 10th place finisher in that kind of race, then I think the equation shifts to Providence, because I think their top 3 ends up being a little bit more potent, and their back ends aren't that different. Now Georgetown was better, their 4 and 5 scores in their last race, but I think they're fairly equivalent in my
mind. I agree. I'm giving Georgetown the slight edge as well. 3rd place, Villanova, then Connecticut. Fair? Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is a situation where Connecticut has their best shot at beating Villanova. I think in this kind of smaller field, I think you look at their top group. It's as good as anybody's in the country, led by Chloe Thomas.
Well, I don't know about that.
What?
I don't know about that. I don't know if they're as good as anyone's in the country. I mean, that's
sorry. That's probably hyperbolic, but I mean, Chloe Thomas has been exceptional, and I think she could be a little underrated going into the national meet, especially if she takes home the win here. I think Villanova. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is Villanova and UConn I think are a lot tighter in this race than I think maybe people would expect looking at their previous results.
The individual battle could be really fun here.
Yeah.
So in terms of the individual battle, you have women such as Kimberly May of Providence, Chloe Scrimger of Georgetown, Chloe Thomas of UConn. Who else here? I think that's probably the 3, unless you really want to put Sadie Sigstead. Sigstead could be in there. So that's 4. I think we'll keep those 4. Could you argue in favor of Millard? Sure. Could you argue in favor of Riggins? Sure. Jinx? Sure. I don't think those women, though, are beating all 4 of the women we just mentioned. So Sadie Sigstead of Villanova, Chloe Thomas of UConn, Kimberly May of Providence, and Chloe Scrimger of Georgetown. Who are you taking?
I'm going with Chloe Thomas. I just think she's ranked very highly in our individual rankings. Make sure you get a subscription so you can see exactly where she is relative to these other women. But I think she's gonna keep rising after this week, and I think I mean fifth place at pre nationals. She's done everything you could really ask of her at this point, and I think she's gonna continue to do that this weekend.
Let's move off the women's side here. We're going to go to the men's side. We've got Villanova. We've got Georgetown. Maybe Butler. Maybe on Butler. Villanova favored, not heavily. Georgetown looks like they could be an issue, but Villanova should win. Now, we said the same thing about
Yes.
last year that Villanova should win, and then Butler took the upset. If
Mhm.
Florian Lepellic comes in and he's like a stud, which he should be, but he's not been this season. He's just
Yeah.
then maybe this is a different conversation. But Villanova, Georgetown, Butler, fair.
Yes, yeah, and I would maybe disagree a little bit. Now, again, this is conference meet; anything can happen. Things can get a little weird as we saw last year, as you mentioned. I think Villanova is a fairly clear favorite. Their issues are more that fourth or fifth score, which I'm a little less concerned about in a Big East championship, and I just don't think there's going to be a team that really can match their top two or really come close, to be honest. And I think that's just going to give them too big of an edge uh, against teams that are flawed like Georgetown and Butler.
Yeah, I will say this: the lineup structures of Georgetown and Butler are not conducive to beating Villanova in this field.
No,
So I'm with you there. Like Georgetown has like a complete top four. You know, they have a fairly complete lineup so far, but I don't trust them to kind of match and then overwhelm completely the back end of Villanova's
no,
back.
yeah, yeah.
It just seems unlikely. Liam Murphy favored for the win. He will be flanked behind him in no particular order. Zagarsky of Butler, by Marco Langon, his teammate at Villanova. I don't know if there's a
I
Georgetown
mean, it could be a
guy.
Villanova top two. Like that
Who are you
feels
taking
very.
second, Zagorski or Langon?
I think Langone, just because I think he's going to be able to work with Murphy, and I think that having a teammate who's going to win it, I think will probably be give him a slight edge when I think they're pretty similar runners.
Yeah, I mean Leo Murphy's going to probably dictate this race,
Exactly.
and so if Langon's like, hey, I know what my guy's going to do. You know, we've talked about this beforehand. Then I don't see like Zagorski is then at a disadvantage if he has to then
Exactly.
go behind two guys. So, all right, let's move off of that. We're going to the Mountain West, and we'll wrap up with the Mountain West. Where did you want to start? I'll let you kick us off here.
Let's start on let's stick with on the men's side, and I think that obviously New Mexico comes in as the big favorite, but I mean there's some interesting Wyoming. I'm curious to see what we get out of them. I think they've been solid all year, and I mean it's just not quite as deep of a conference. I mean Utah State's solid. I think Air Force, after a really rough pre-nationals performance, is going to be very motivated to put together a good performance. We've seen them run well at the Mountain West Conference before, but in my mind, I mean, New Mexico is going to run away with this, and the battle is really for second.
How many guys does New Mexico put in the top 10?
Oof. 4?
Yep, 4 was my answer too. Yeah. New Mexico men are going to win this. Will probably
Yep.
not be close. Who are you taking second? I'm interested to hear this.
I think I like Wyoming over
I do
Utah
too.
State.
I like Wyoming too.
I think they've just been very consistent. They've run in big fields. They've really truly been tested, and they've come out well on the other side. I think now the lineup structure is a little interesting when you look at it. I don't know if I think Cameron Todd is probably like clearly the best runner out of these two teams, but then you look at the rest of Wyoming's pack. I think I trust Utah. I trust that over Utah State.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I do trust Wyoming more. I mean, Wyoming has given us more. They've proven
Yeah.
more on a variety of different fields too. And I think Jacob Wake, like he can be a top 5 guy in this field. Like I don't think that's unrealistic.
Wow. All right.
I mean,
I
you
don't
really
know.
think about it. I mean, so
Yeah.
let's say New Mexico takes 2 of the top 5, right? Then you
You
have
think just 2 out of the top 5?
I mean, they could take 3 of the top 5, right? But then you throw Cameron Todd in there, and then
Yeah.
who else is like
Yeah. That's
Max
fair.
Sanis maybe? So, like, I think it's close, but I wouldn't be surprised if White is a top 5 guy.
Yep. Yeah, and if they have a top 5 guy, I don't think it's I don't think
It's not gonna
I think Wyoming's gonna finish second,
Yeah,
clearly.
yeah. Women's side, let's go to the women's side here. New Mexico, again favored,
Yep.
and that's it? Is that
I
the
think so.
conversation?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have anything else to add.
I don't either.
I wish we've been able to talk about Colorado State in the past, but not quite
What
the
would you
same.
put New Mexico favored at? Like -600? Like,
Yeah, probably more than that.
yeah.
Like, I mean, that's free money. Like,
Um, okay, well, great conversation on the Mountain West women. This was fantastic. So
do we want to touch on Ivy League at all before we wrap up?
let's just do Princeton men versus Harvard men.
Yeah.
Who are you taking? Reminder
Oh,
that last year Harvard came into this meet as the
yeah,
favorite.
and
Princeton won.
Princeton. Yeah. I think it kind of depends on what Ben Rosa we're gonna see.
Oh, good answer. Okay.
If and I think he's going to be better, so I think I'll go with Harvard.
I don't know if he's going to be better, which is like yeah, no kidding kind of like thing to say. But I don't like this Princeton team as much as I did last year because Nicholas Benson has not been the low stake that we kind of
Yep.
hoped he would be. And I like Miles Hogan a lot. Miles Hogan for Princeton's awesome. But I think Harvard's proven enough to me that like we know they've got a number one. Brosnan has been good enough. I think the
Yep.
bracket's
He's
a
been good.
little bit better if Erna Kovacs is there. I will take Harvard as well. But Princeton finds a way to like make
They
this
have
just a
some
nightmare.
weird magic around
Wow.
this title. It's very strange.
Yeah, very weird. So, but that's it. That's all I got.
All right. We'll call it there. Make sure that you guys are, like I said, subscribed to the site. There's going to be, as Garrett mentioned, a lot of previews written alongside all this podcast that you just listened to. So make sure you're on top of that. Anything else before we wrap it up?
No, just like you said, a lot of previews and predictions coming. We probably won't do the super duper high intensity detailed predictions, but I will make sure that we try to get as many predictions articles out with some analysis on the site. It's going to be awesome. And also, just a quick disclaimer to everyone listening to this. Conference weekend is coming up this upcoming weekend, obviously, if you're listening to this. It's also the day that my cousin decided to get married. And I'm like, no. So, like, just know I'm trying. I'm giving my best shot. Work with me here. So, but other than that, that's all I got.
All right. Yeah. Good disclaimer. All right. Well, until next time, Garrett, I'll talk to you.
I'll talk to you.